overwhelmingly white voters vote for Republicans, but they still make them an offer. They're like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, this is what Donald Trump was very clear. This is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get rid of these brown immigrants.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Liberal Expression. The week started off with the liberal media coming up with creative ways to protect Joe Biden from the moment that he decided he should decree who is really black in America.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Yeah, the liberal media softly explains that comment away because, you know, it's because he's rusty or he's been denied the opportunity to campaign.
Campaigning from his basement or back porch has its drawbacks, denying Biden the retail politics he relishes. And he can get rusty, like this misstep with radio host Charlemagne the God last week.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Biden did pivot by apologizing and drawing attention to the president's record on race.
See, even though an old white Democrat gets to decide who's black, Trump's the bad guy, even if you have to make up some crap in order to get that argument across.
Black voters vote for Democrats in overwhelming numbers. And then the Democratic Party and the Democratic candidates, they take for granted, they build it into their number plan that they're already going to get those votes. And so there isn't necessarily an urgency to offer something. That's why I opened my questioning with Karine the way I did, is that, you know, overwhelmingly white voters vote for Republicans, but they still make them an offer. They're like, well, this is what I'm going to do. I mean, this is what Donald Trump was very clear. This is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to get rid of these brown immigrants.
Wow, they get to make stuff up like that. But if Trump brings up Biden's actual quote, well, that just makes him desperate to find negatives.
Andrew Mitchell, I want to put up on screen that the Trump campaign is already spending $1 million in digital ads, trying to take advantage of this. They're selling T-shirts with a hashtag on it. I don't know whether that is showing a Trump campaign that is nimble or a Trump campaign that is searching for anything to chip away at Joe Biden.
They're searching for anything negative, and they are nimble.
Darn those nimble Republicans jumping on Joe Biden for what he actually says. You know, you should know better. But people just don't seem to be listening to the leftist media, do they?
Cal, are they not worried about their own personal safety?
I haven't met anybody who is. I met some folks actually from Lake Geneva who lived in the area. They were staying a few miles outside of town where I were, and they said they're worried about it. They're worried about that second spike. They're worried about folks coming in from Chicago, but they'll quickly add at the same time, this is a place that relies on that business. I think people here want a little bit more funding when it comes to these programs so that they could stay closed. But again, I think people felt like the Supreme Court made the decision here in Wisconsin that it was time to open up. But you can see here, just around. Nobody's wearing them. Nobody's. The there you go, including the cameraman. Yeah. Katie.
Oh, an MSNBC crew gets called out for not wearing masks during a segment where they're upset that people aren't wearing masks. That happened over the past weekend. Over on CNN, it was a week ago when Fredo Cuomo demonstrated how little he actually cared about the elderly New Yorkers affected by his brother's order to put COVID patients in nursing homes. Instead, he decided he would cavort around with a giant swab.
Is it true that this was the swab that the nurse was actually using on you, and that at first it went into your nose and disappeared, so that in scale, this was the actual swab that was being used?
This week, it's totally different. Fredo gets hardcore and claims it's President Trump who isn't taking this issue seriously.
Nearly 100,000 Americans dead, and this president is playing games over Joe Biden wearing a mask, not to mention millions of other Americans now doing the same. How about the clowns?
If you're watching CNN, I bet you're pretty familiar with clowns. But this week, the media paraded out some sad, scary clowns. And this part isn't really that funny. The top story of the week has been heinous. And if you've seen the video of a Minnesota law enforcement officer kneeling on the neck of George Floyd, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's some serious conversations to be had about the right and wrong ways to come to grips with what happened and how to proceed. But the leftist media is incapable of having these conversations. From NBC's Craig Melvin tweeting about guiding the reporting that there are protests but not riots happening in Minneapolis because burning and looting stores is now a protest, not a crime. NBC staff took that guidance to heart, and they continue to, no matter how ludicrous it becomes.
So I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly, but fires have been started, and there's a crowd that is relishing that.
The mall is on fire behind you. How the hell is that not unruly? It's almost as messed up as Brian Williams' mind as he grapples with asking the pertinent questions that come into it at this time.
What would our last president have done, and what would he have said by now?
You know, I don't know.
Williams didn't ask, but MSNBC staff would also be unable to tell us what Martin Van Buren or Andrew Jackson would say if they were still in office, because it doesn't matter, they're not. Maybe the leftist media could be interested in what the current president is actually saying.
Nobody wants to hear from the White House or the Attorney General right now.
Because as usual, the media would rather push their agenda, spread fake news, and tell you what you should do.
How many more excuses do you need to make before you examine yourself and say, okay, maybe I need to wake up a little bit and take a good long look at what I've been doing. Maybe I need to understand or realize that the environment that this president has trafficked in can help to lead to these sorts of situations.
They're very good at dictating to you, but they never seem to take their own advice.
Maybe I need to wake up a little bit and take a good long look at what I've been doing.
Maybe you should, Don. Just maybe. I'm Eric Shiner for MRC TV. Be sure to check out MRC-store for some great mugs, shirts, and floor mats. Other great conservative gear is available there as well. Check out mrctv.org for more great stories and videos. And we'll be taking a break for a bit here, but we will return shortly with more leftist media insanity.